Hello and welcome to another episode of What If It's Cool, the show where we talk about anything and everything that is cool in the world today. I am the fat henchman that dies first, Daniel Paul Crow. With me, the mastermind that gets his comeuppance at the end, Trip B, and the unnamed foot soldier number 3, Tim. How we going, boys?
Yes, I wanted to be known. I wanted to be known as foot soldier number 3 because I thought he was very.
No, but you're the unnamed foot soldier on this one.
Yes, but you know, like they're quite pivotal in that one scene. So it's a very, very important role. So I'm very glad that you acknowledged me as that.
Yes.
Well, this is going to come out further later than when you hear this, but it's now going to be the third week we're out of lockdown here in Melbourne. And how are you guys going anyway? Enjoying it?
Yeah, it's
right.
good to have some freedoms and travel around a bit more. It's good to actually go out and eat, but same old, back to work.
I'm not used to the crowds. I'm really not used to the crowds. So everyone pretty much had the same idea and decided to go to the shops the day that we decided to go. And yeah, it was just insane seeing that amount of people. I was actually getting a bit anxious.
Well, it's been 3 months since we've done anything like that, and that was a very scary sight. I remember when I went to work and seeing that many people on the road, I went, "Oh my gosh!" But you know, at least we're getting numbers down and we're doing a lot better. So hopefully we can keep this trend. Now today we are talking about a movie that is very close to my heart. How close it is? Check out our Tumblr page. You can find us at What If It's Called Podcast on Tumblr, where I actually wrote a small article about this. It's entitled "The Movie That Saved My Life." Also check it out because Tim's written a couple of articles there, mainly about AEW and wrestling. I'm sure he'll write some more stuff later on, but we haven't got too much stuff on there right now. But we're talking about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the original movie from 1990, and this is, I still think this is the best film I've ever seen. Don't know about you guys, but let's tackle right into it. Tim, do you want to get us started with the story?
I don't think anyone really needs to know the story. Ninja Turtles were so huge in the late 80s and 90s, so...
Yeah, but these millennials and these young kids these days, they only think of the Michael Bay sort of stuff. And I feel quite sad for them.
I've never asked what you thought of the most recent live-action movies.
And you'll find that out in the future. I'm not going to talk about that now.
You're so cryptic. Why are you so cryptic, man? Why?
Look, there's a lot to be said about the Michael Bay film, and I think we would have to cover that in the future, so I don't want to sort of spoil that for anything. But if you just want to get me, if you just want me to say, did I like it? Kinda, but I have reasons for liking it and also hating it. So,
all right. Well,
it is what
okay.
it is.
As you've requested, for the millennials out there who might not know about this series that a lot of us grew up with, the storyline for this is a quartet of humanoid turtles trained by their mentor in ninjutsu must learn to work together to face the menace of Shredder and the Foot Clan, courtesy of Wikipedia and Google.
Pretty good summary. You want to fill in the gaps, Dan?
Yeah, I can do that. So the opening of this movie starts off with, an open shot of the city, and you're hearing a news report, which we later find out is April O'Neil, and it's saying basically that the city is going through a massive silent crime wave, which is a lot of stuff is being stolen, and you see lots of footage of kids taking multiple things from tallies, stereos, money, wallets. Sorry, my voice just broke that sound. I think my balls are about to drop. But it's very interesting because we're now in 2020 and this stuff is still happening. Not to this point, not to the extravagant of like silent crime or anything like that, but we're still having kids stealing stuff like this. So, after 30 years, nothing's really changed. But then we get to the shot of April talking into the TV, saying, all this, and it leads to the shot where she's leaving the studio to go home into her car. She then gets attacked by a couple of Yous, and then we get the introduction of the turtles, but not straight away. They actually just they just have a fight, and it's all blacked out, and then, yeah, the rest is history, as they say.
In that opening sequence, was that where Sam Rockwell was first glimpsed? Because he's like the leader of the gang.
No, he didn't come in till later. Like, he was... When you first see the Foot headquarters, that's when he first comes in, because he's the guy who's like, if you want to do something, do it. And then the guy says,
got any cigarettes?
Yeah. Regular or menthol?
Yeah.
I will never forget that, because I remember my dad just sitting there laughing because, you know, he just heard the cigarette line, and he's just like, oh, real men just smoke cigarettes. There's no such thing as menthol. I'm just like, huh? It's just like, it flew over my head. Now that I'm older, I'm like, okay, I see what he meant by that.
I think that's what this movie is. Well, having watched it recently, it was the first time I'd seen it in so many years. So, you know, some of the things that you might not have picked up on as a kid, like, you start to pick up on as an adult. And so, yeah, like, my enjoyment of this was very different to when I was much younger, when I first watched this movie. I mean, I must have replayed the tape hundreds of times because, yeah, it was very near and dear to me when I was younger. But as an adult, there was a lot that I think just made me laugh, and I don't think it was the intention of the creators to make me laugh the way that I was.
Well, what would be some of the stuff that you would laugh at? Because I remember you saying stuff like that when we're off camera.
Yeah, look, firstly, things that didn't make me laugh, like, I just found Michelangelo incessantly annoying in this, and I know that that's how the character is meant to be. He's like the motor mouth and, you know, trying to be a wisecracker or a wise guy, and he just wasn't remotely funny in many of the scenes, and a lot of that humor just sort of fell flat. Maybe it's, but then again, the way I think about this is this movie was really geared towards kids. You know, the series itself, the original animated series, was largely geared towards kids. It was meant to start a franchise, and meant to create interest in the toy line, which was massive back in the day. And yeah, well, with this movie, like, a lot of that, I think, really was aimed at children's, and, you know, for their enjoyment.
When you said the toy line, this is something I wanted to mention. I forgot to say to you boys. The main reason why Playmates didn't make a toy line for the movie, because they did it for the second one, and I think they did, I'm 100% sure they did it for the third, is because it was way too violent. Now, looking at the movie, I don't even think it's that violent for a kid's film. Like, I've seen other films that are more violent than that, but come on, like, it took us to get, I think it was 15 years, maybe 18 years to get figures that are based on that. NECA did some figures on that, and you can still get them now. But I was just like, just give us some toys. I really wanted to get toys that look like that when I was younger. Yeah,
it was largely bloodless. It's not a very violent film by even, I think, by the standards of back then. Like, for example, Leonardo and Raphael, they've got bladed weapons, which you could use to stab or slice people, and yeah, like, there's no drop of blood to be seen, and, you know, it's like they were just there to be held rather than being used during the battle, because yeah, they relied on a lot of punches and kicks instead.
Well, I think the only real violent thing besides, like, Shredder getting a cut to the shoulder that I find, and I still find a little bit disturbing now, was when that foot soldier used the axe and he hit the power line. You know, that was a bit freaky because he goes, that's the only one I think that was more violent. That and having been electrocuted in the past, you know, just like a little spark, nothing that extravagant. That's scary. But what didn't make sense about that as well, he had wood on the axe. So, like, how the hell did he get electrocuted? It wasn't like a full metal one. But, yeah.
Yes, these are the things that you think about on your regular rewatches of this film. Yeah.
Yeah. There's so many things that, like, I'll watch and I'm like, and like the most stupidest things I'll look at, like, oh, I didn't notice that before. Like for instance, in the scene where April is, talking to her boss, and then see that the turtles are hiding. There is a guy who's actually sitting across the table, and he's just trying to hide. And it's been pointed out on multiple podcasts, on multiple YouTube videos. I didn't even notice it until fairly recently because I always skim past that, and I'm like, there actually is a guy there.
There was one that I saw later on, and I read about it on IMDb. But when Casey's getting the dump truck to take care of the leftovers, I love how he says it as well. How he's like, "Ooh, leftovers," and he's running towards the truck, but then there's this dude that just runs across the frame.
Yeah, that's Kevin Eastman.
Yeah, but it was a crew member, and they weren't even meant to be in the shot apparently.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
So I laughed at that. And there are apparently heaps of, goofs in the movie that I would like to rewatch and see. Because, for one, I didn't actually see any of the bits where the turtles' mouths are open and you can see the actor inside. I just want to go back and watch it for that. But
Is that usually when they do the acrobatics and fight scenes? I still remember.
No, not really. It's really when they're talking, actually, because there's one scene where Donnie is just sitting there laughing, and he lifts up his mouth, and you see the is it the animatics or robotic?
Animatronics?
Animatronics, sorry, in the mouth, and it's freaky because it's just like, oh, he swallowed a kid. That's what it kind of looks like.
Swallowed this small Asian guy.
But speaking of that, I think that. Oh no, it wouldn't be because he was. Because I was going to say it might have been Ernie Reyes Jr.'s, but no, he was Donnie's fight double, so it couldn't have been that guy in that scene.
I did like some of the stuff ups throughout, so they're meant to be obviously anthropomorphic turtles, but the shells are clearly made of foam, so that when they connect with anything, they just look soft and spongy.
Did you notice that there was one of them was wearing a t-shirt as well?
Sorry?
One of them was wearing a t-shirt as well, so instead of having foam arms, it was actually a t-shirt. I noticed that recently, and that was in the final battle scene, and I was just like, you gotta be kidding me. I never noticed it.
I found so many things about this that just were very silly, and it's on part of the creators of the comic. This was created largely as a goof. They wanted to just make something silly, and it launched a worldwide phenomenon. But seeing that scene when they're all meditating, and then they end up summoning Splinter in the fire. The crackling fire, and then it goes a blue hue. I just kind of thought of Star Wars and how ludicrous it was. But I mean, if you watch any ninja movie from before Ninja Turtles, a lot of this is quite familiar. Ninjas are able to teleport. They're able to do all kinds of crazy things. When they do their hand seals and what have you, they can summon things or whatever. So I don't know why, but it just made me laugh. And I know it was meant to be an emotional scene, but I just thought it was really stupid.
I cry in that every time I watch that scene. And when you when you told me that, I was like, oh, you've broken my heart. You ruined it. You ruined that scene for me now, because now I'm picturing Yoda or oh god.
And you know what? The emotion of the scene is totally there. I think that it is a very emotional scene, and it was read quite genuinely, and there was nothing that was meant to be funny about that. But then I kept thinking about it. I was like, this is bullshit. This is a rat, a brown rat. And brown rats have the lifespan of 2 years, so how the fuck did he last this long? Don't tell me that it was the ooze that made him have a much longer life. I think it's just ridiculous. I'm sorry, Dad. I feel really bad.
It's alright. It's alright. Look, it is what it is. I mean, not many people have the same emotion that I do with this movie. And I mentioned that in the article that I wrote. Because I try to even when your brother Trip, I was, trying to get him to watch it with me and to feel that connection, and he didn't get it. I kind of feel like when I did it with you were exactly the same, though. Yeah?
Yeah, sure. I don't know which one. I don't know which one you're talking about. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, no, but I find a lot of people don't have the same connection I do, and that's fine.
Yeah, the reason is because I watched this and I'm rewatching it again leading up to tonight. There's a lot of nostalgic moments, and I think with us growing up in the 90s, I remember hiring this from Blockbuster Video, which I'm pretty sure is bankrupt now, and then just regularly just watching it maybe once a month because I enjoyed it so much, just having it in the background. And the things that stood out for me was that end fight scene, and that scene when Splinter was still like a little rat and he's like practicing karate when he was still a little rat. And like, okay, maybe from a storytelling perspective, you can say that, okay, if it was the mutagens or the ooze or whatever that gave him the ability to practice karate or ninjutsu or whatever, that makes perfect sense. But the fact that it was just like an average rat in a cage and it was just mirroring those moments, I'm thinking, okay, let's just throw reality out the window. I probably should have done it at the start anyway, because if you tell me that it is a children's movie, I mean, if the foot soldiers were delinquents and it was those delinquents, and if the head delinquent is Sam Rockwell, dude, I mean, anyone can beat up those foot soldiers. You don't need like a Ninja Turtle or like a big guy in a suit. You could get like a year 8 or 16-year-old bully to beat up those guys. I mean, like, I look at those people, they're not that intimidating. Like, remember who was that second in command? Is it Tatsu?
Master Tatsu.
That's right. Remember when he got told off by, like, Splinter? Like, well, it didn't even actually get told off. Like, Splinter just looked at him and stared at him, and he was like, his head was down. And then afterwards, it goes on that rampage where he just pushes cardboard boxes over.
Oh, no,
and then
no,
it goes into...
That was Shredder. So Shredder stared at him, and he just basically drilled holes into the side of Tatsu's face, and then he was just feeling so deeply ashamed that he went on the rampage.
Yeah, I think that was one of my favorite scenes.
You bring up a good point. Like, if the Master can easily beat all those soldiers as well to the pulp that he did, like, they're weak as hell. Because, like, no one stood a chance against him. Like, you had two guys and he knocked their heads together and they just went, oh. And then you had the other guy said, stop, just stop. And then instead of defending himself or just, trying to calm the situation, he got his ass kicked.
I do love the characterization of Shredder and Tatsu, though, because that's power. Like, and the mere fact that he could stare at his underling to the point that he just feels so deeply ashamed because of his failure. But even Tatsu himself, like, he wouldn't even say, like, he didn't really say many things. Like, he would just hold his hand out and then squeeze it into a fist, and then the foot soldiers would attack. I was like, this is great. Like, they made them very memorable villains, and, that was a lot of fun.
But he did the grunt a lot as well. And that's... But what was your favourite line? Because you said this to me last week, and I love it the way you do it.
Which line? From Casey Jones?
Ninja vanish!
Oh, yes. Ninja vanish! It's brilliant, and it just reminds me of a lot of old ninja movies that I've watched. So, like, there's Ninja and the Dragon's Den from Hong Kong, which is absolutely fantastic. That's a real blend of China and Japanese cultures. And, you get some really fantastic choreography featuring Hiroyuki Sanada from Japan. Absolutely brilliant. So if you wanted to watch a top ninja movie, you'd watch that. But as a kid, growing up, Ninja Turtles was probably one of the least violent options that a parent could show their child.
Well, it's funny you say that because in Europe, they thought it was very violent because here's the funny thing about Ninja Turtles in Europe, particularly in England, you couldn't say the word ninja because it was one of the... I can't remember how many lines or how many names were there, but there was a particular list where you couldn't say this. So instead of calling the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, they were called the Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles.
Yes.
That's for the film and the TV series. But here's what was the shittier thing about it: all the scenes where you saw Michelangelo's nunchucks were cut. Up until recently, and this is as far as I know, I could be wrong, but Europe never got to see the full cut of the TMNT movie until I think maybe 10 years ago. While Germany had a complete uncut cut of the movie, but here's the funny thing: they put sound effects whenever people would fall and stuff, and that's what they did also in the European cut, which we did get over here in Australia or even in America. But that's just something that I was just like, whoa.
Question: so why did they cut out the nunchuck scenes? Is it because
apparently that's more violent than a sword, a katana, a sai. Yeah, that it made no sense why they did it.
In relation to another movie, any Bruce Lee movie that featured nunchucks, the UK release would always edit it out. So it was actually very hard for a long time to, not only just see a complete cut of Ninja Turtles over there, but even complete cuts of Bruce Lee's film. So the double nunchuck scene from Way of the Dragon, that was virtually lost for a long time for them until, of course, they started remastering it and reissuing these things.
Wow, I never knew that. And that's like one of the best Bruce Lee scenes ever.
True.
Oh, man.
So I'm just thinking, would they ban scenes like action scenes of, gun battles as well? Is that
no, they didn't. That's the funny thing. They didn't do stuff like that. So.
They just really hated nunchucks. Is that specifically nunchucks?
Just prejudice towards nunchucks.
Jeez, that's
I feel like maybe the censor he got a pair of nunchucks and he was trying out and he hit himself in the balls or in the head and he's like what, stuff it. All these kids they can't use nunchucks now because I can't even do it.
I found so much of the humor in this really cringeworthy.
Well, you were saying that the impression scene you hated.
Yeah, it was awful. It was really, really awful. And then April's there just cracking up. I was like, this isn't funny. Like, this shouldn't be funny to a grown woman, let alone adult viewers. Like, it was like there was no context for it. And then, yeah, it just sounded stupid.
Did you guys even understand some of the, I didn't get the reference to, the Cagney thing, or what was he, because he did Rocky, but I was just like, it was, completely over my head. I'm like, maybe because we're in a different generation or something, but...
Yeah, so, they just grew up watching TV, but, that James Cagney impersonation, it must have just been written in there to segue into the joke, so, she then makes a joke about Splinter being a rat, and then, having to explain to the turtles that she was just joking. But it was it was awful, man. And then even when they were doing, they're meant to meditate at the beginning after their first battle, they start doing a dance to that tequila song. Yeah, I just wanted to stop watching the movie at that point. I was like, Christ, Dan wants me to watch this garbage, but and now having
you guys wanted me to watch all those horror movies, and I
hang on, settle down, don't get your nerd panties in a twist. But Dan's forcing us to watch this. It's like having to be force fed vegetables as a kid, and at that scene, I was just like, oh man, I can't believe that I watched this so many times as a kid. So again, there's that huge disconnect, having grown up with it and loving it. Whereas now watching it with the adult eye and then just thinking, yeah, okay, this is stuff that really didn't make me laugh. And I couldn't get back into the spirit of it. And I was very critical of a lot of the things. And we've glossed over it, but, I just felt like I wanted to mention the action sequences. The action sequences here, they don't have any bite. There's no real sort of snap to it. And I guess highlighting, they wanted to throw in special or fancy moves, so fly kicks here and there. It just lacked a lot of oomph. But I will say that one of the things that I enjoyed the most was the rooftop battle. So when Raphael gets jumped by the foot soldiers, I thought that was a really well drawn out scene, and to sort of transition from what the Turtles are doing down in the antique store to seeing what's happening with Raphael, and then the use of the jazz music and what have you. I thought it was done amazingly, and I thought of it as, if a parent were to take their kid to the cinema to watch this, the kids would love the slapstick elements to the fight scene. I myself didn't. Like, I thought the slapstick elements were unnecessary for a darker movie. But then you have something for the parents. The parents can enjoy some of the more serious moments in that scene. And it does swing between the two sort of feels throughout the scene itself. So you'd have slapstick to entertain the kids. You'd have the serious moments of Raph getting beaten up, beaten close to death. And so, yeah, it was really good. And then, yeah, even when I was reading up on the movie itself, the creators did stress that they wanted to make this as a hybrid. So this was meant to be a hybrid of the comic books, which were quite violent, but they also wanted to marry that up with the hugely popular animated series. Blending the two together, I think it was actually quite successful in what they set out to achieve.
It just occurred to me as well, because that came out in 1990. We're now 2020, so that movie's 30 years old now, and we can't really sit here and enjoy it, in a cinema like they're doing in America, thanks to COVID, which sucks.
Oh, we can soon. Restrictions lifted. I think 20 person per cinema room. So, hey, if things go well, we'll catch a movie sometime soon at the end of the year.
Yeah, I'd love to do that.
They're actually showing a lot of older films at the cinemas that have reopened. So who knows, Dan? You might get to see this on the big screen.
I hope so. I've never had the chance to go see it. I know the Astor, which is in Melbourne, have done it in the past. I've just never had a chance to go see it, but that would be really good if the Astor are listening right now. Please put it back on. But yeah, that would be really good. But what I want to continue on. So obviously we got to the scene where now that the Turtles have attacked onto the roof and everything. Casey Jones, man, when you finally see him fully suited up properly and not beating up criminals like he was in the park, how badass was that, man? Like the hand to the stick, and he says, "You want to know what are you doing with my green pal over there?" Oh, who's the babe? Like that's boss right there.
I think, yeah, so he says earlier on in the film when he meets Raphael, when he goes, Pain 101, your instructor is Casey Jones. But I think that, for young kids or, young teens, Casey Jones probably would have just been the man, and you would have wanted to be taking pickup tips from him.
Oh, for sure. Definitely.
I think he was the most fun. He was definitely the most fun performance out of all of them. And, I think there's a bit of a timelessness to it, because he's quite roguish, but also, he can hold his own really well in a fight. Like how kids would look up to like a big brother figure. Yeah, you see the Turtles, well, at least Donatello looking up to him as well, which was great.
Yeah, that scene where they're in the garage and they're talking about all different kinds of stuff, but then they start insulting each other, but using the alphabet. So, they start off with Fungoid, then it's Gack Face, Hose Brain,
Elf Lips.
Elf Lips.
That was really good. I didn't actually know that until you pointed it out like a couple of months ago.
Oh, you never noticed it?
No, never. I just thought it was like just really, really, really lame 90s like insults for like G-rated movie. So
no, my dad was the one who pointed it out, because like my dad sort of like he just noticed all these like random crap in movies, and he just say it's like, oh, they say an alphabet. Oh, that's funny-ish, or something like that. And I was like, I didn't even notice that, Dad.
It was, yeah, it's very inoffensive, and to the point that, well, the way that scene plays out, it becomes quite endearing, and I think that the characterization for Casey was done really well, whereas like with the other Turtles, like my opinion varied on all of them, but I just wanted to raise this other thing. Dan, you and I have talked about this before, but and I'm going to throw this question out to both of you. Do either of you remember Raphael being such a hothead in the animated series, the original animated series, and also feuding a lot with Leo and being quite angry himself like he is in this film?
Well, from my memory of the cartoon series, the one who was more of a hothead at points was Michelangelo, especially in the first episode, second episode, because he was saying, don't lose your temper. Splinter was saying, don't lose your temper, but they never really had a feud. But in the comic books, yeah, they were like that. But I didn't read the comic books until I was until I was 29. So it's kind of weird that they sort of went that way. But I think it makes the story look really good, because like in the cartoon, it just seems like they all got along, and it's like there's no conflict there.
Yeah, the only thing this is what my memory was. The only thing that I could remember that would differentiate them was just the color of their masks and the weapons they had. They were basically identical characters. Whereas in this movie, the characterization that's most memorable would be Raphael. And I thought he was the MVP out of the Turtles. And that's what I liked about the 2014 film. They carried through with that. They had Raphael being sort of more of a focal point, being really angry, and also bucking against whatever trend or leadership that Leo would try to instill. And even in the comics, the 2011 series that I started reading years ago, Raphael ended up being the most interesting character. And so I'm glad that he was the MVP. And when I was reading about it, the actor who, within the suit for Raphael in this movie, he was so memorable with how he did the voice work that he was the only one out of all of the Turtles whose voice work they kept. Everyone else got redubbed.
Yeah. It's a shame he didn't do the other two movies too. Like they got replacements for him, and because he was such a good actor too. Because like he made a cameo in the movie when Raph jumps over the taxi, and he's the guy who goes, "What the hell was that?" And yeah, because everyone who was in the suit had a cameo, but his one was probably the most memorable because he's the one that had like the best line, I guess.
It's funny that you talk about the character of it. I think you're right in terms of it's not really fleshed out until, like in the cartoon, it's not really fleshed out other than the colors, and they try to give them a little bit more personality in this one. And I think one of the things that they try to do with the Michael Bay ones were to make them more distinct with like additional things on the turtle, like necklaces and stuff to put them apart. So like Donatello with those glasses to show that he's like the smart one in the group, and Michelangelo with his cool Hawaiian beads, but I think, yeah, I mean the dynamic with Raph and Leo, you guys probably know it better than I do. I got more of a sense of it in the animated movie. I think that was 2007. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is it 2007?
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah,
I think it was 2007.
Yeah, and I think that was fleshed out better in that one. Like
that had the best dynamic for both of them, because they had that really dramatic fight scene in the rain, and then Leo just turns around and says, "Most importantly, I'm better than you," and like how could you say that to your brother like that? Like I couldn't imagine saying that to anybody and meaning it to that degree, and that's just harsh. But
I guess Raph was always kind of like the Batman brooding guy in the group, right? Like
that's right.
He likes to do it alone. He likes to brawl. I think him using a Sai short-range weapon, likes to get in close and brawl.
I really love that 2007 version more, and I think that the Ninja Turtles property itself really lends itself better to an animated format as opposed to live action. Even though out of the live action movies, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 1990 is arguably the best. I just thought that the animation for 2007 was so slick, and they were able to do a lot more with regards to their fighting styles. Whereas in this, I think that they may have been quite limited, and especially because the suits themselves, they were basically just hotboxes. Once they put the suits on them, they were sealed in, and so you don't really know like how much that would have affected the physicality, and maybe that's why the fight scenes were weren't as great. But also depends on like which choreographers you got or which stuntmen you have. Like I had a look at the list on IMDb, and I don't think the choreographer for this was really that great from Hong Kong.
Well, the film was produced by Golden Harvest, and you would think that a studio that's renowned for making movies with Bruce Lee, Jet Li, Donnie Yen, Jackie Chan, that they would do great choreography, but this didn't do it. This didn't really have that much great choreography. I mean, I love the fight scenes, but the choreography, it lacked a bit.
Yeah. See, like even in the end fight scene, like they all charge at Shredder, but then they resort to fighting him one-on-one after that charge. I was like, this is ridiculous. Like, you guys had a sound idea there. Let's all charge him, but then instead you decided to take him on one-on-one. And I think, look, maybe that was just to highlight how impressive Shredder was, because yeah, he was slick. Like, he moved really well. But I think that the choreography in this could have been amped up a notch, and yeah.
Well, I think that scene, and we're cutting way into the ending, but I think the main reason why they did that and how they went one by one is to set up, because they are teenagers, so they're not really experienced enough to realize that was going on. But I mean, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But that's how I took it. It's like they're kids and they didn't realize what they were doing.
That's a very good point, because like never at any point I thought that they were teenagers. Maybe it just sounded like because they were grown men and they were huge, but like never at any point I realized that, okay, that kind of makes sense. It's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So maybe they're going to be, irrational, impulsive, and have other struggles that come along as, as teenagers. That's interesting. Never really thought about that.
I wanted to know if teenagers in 1990 were talking the way that these turtles did. Like, I know that they wanted to, like I said before, one of the points that the creators wanted to make was that they wanted to, really make a hybrid between the animated series and the comics. So, yeah, they retained certain elements of like the surfer dude personas, especially the love of pizza and using phrases like cowabunga, radical, etc. But yeah, the way that Mikey comes across, he just sounds like an 8-year-old who's got ADD, and like they just didn't. They didn't sound like teenagers to me, and I thought that maybe that's what, like, one very small aspect that the 2014 movie did a bit better. Like I sort of thought that they sounded a bit more like teenagers or angry teenagers, but. Yeah, like with this one, it's like a writer who just thought, "Hey, I'm gonna do something here and make it sound cool for kids who are like 10 years and under, basically." And yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, no, that sounds right. Because I don't think anyone that I was walking around with, especially with any of my my older relatives who were teenagers at the time, would talk like that. Like, who goes around and says Bossa Nova or Cowabunga back in the 90s? Like, first time I ever heard Cowabunga was in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but my one of my cousins said that it was more of a surfing term, but I've never even heard of a surfer ever say that. Ever.
I very much liked, again, like, I'm just going to have to say that Casey was the best. Like, just his lines and his interactions with April were really funny. Like, everything that he said, like, because they're bickering quite a bit, everything actually got a genuine laugh out of me. Especially when he called her Broadzilla. That was cool.
Broadzilla. I just like it when he said Toots and Babe and all that. And you can just see her getting angrier and angrier. And it's like, can you not see that everything you've just said is, getting under her nerves, and he just keeps on going.
And
and he finishes off with princess. You know what? I'm gonna find the turtles.
and I completely forgot that scene, like, so where he basically gets her to sit down quite forcefully, I might add, and then massages her. But before he does that, he's got the katana and he's using that to cut up the veggies. I was like, that is awesome. Like, this disrespectful using a sacred weapon like that.
And you know what? It was actually cutting the carrot. I'm paying close attention to it. It was actually cutting it. It wasn't just like pretend. So like all that time, I thought it was a piece of foam or plastic, but it looks like a legit dangerous katana.
But one of the best scenes that were during the farmhouse scene was actually the training montage, and it's a shame because this scene was actually meant to be longer, and it had a bit of a backstory behind it. And this is just me listening to other podcasts and trying to decipher this movie, because if you look at it, Michelangelo's bandana is turned the wrong way, and he's fighting blind. I would have loved to see that whole scene played out perfectly, and then you go further onto it to another scene where they're feeling upset because they're missing Splinter, and the biggest mistake in the movie that is plain to see is when Michelangelo is on top of the farm screaming Splinter, but it's Raph's voice.
Yeah, well, I actually made that mistake. I said that to you, and I found that scene in particular just didn't really need to be in there. I just thought, why is he screaming out Splinter's name? Again, you're inconsiderate. You're yelling out Splinter's name. He's not going to hear you, and you're just going to wake up your brothers. but yeah, I totally thought that it was Raphael, and you go, oh no, if you look a bit closer, it's actually, you'll see the nunchucks by his side, so it's Mikey who's doing that. Yeah,
and I noticed that as a kid when I first watched it, I was like, why is Raph's voice coming out of Michelangelo? But one of the other things that I thought about is maybe it was a nod to the cartoon, because there were multiple times when you see it was usually either Donatello or Raphael, and the voice was reversed. So I thought I feel like that may have been a nod. And if the filmmakers are listening, please correct me if I'm wrong. But that's what I feel that may have been. But that's just a theory.
Another thing that you were saying, Dan, just on that point of how that training sequence where they were all sparring was meant to be longer. Well, 2 points. It does start... You do get a sense that it must have had a lot of cuts, because at the start, one of them's got the farmer's hat on, and then the next time, the next cut that you see,
its
hat is gone, and then they're already launching into their training. But and being a fan of Michelangelo when I was a kid, I did like that I think he was the only one who got hits in.
Yeah, he was the only one.
Yeah.
Because he was the one that was defending, and then he managed to go on the attack eventually.
It did seem like it was a very missed opportunity there to show, their martial arts mastery. To only have the barest of glimpses of it, it was, I think, a disservice. But they keep up some of the tropes of ninja movies. At least at the beginning, you don't see them, so they knock out the light. And then a lot of the fighting is just heard in the darkness. And then even when the foot soldiers, their first wave, go to attack them at their hideout towards the end, they turn on the steam, and again they knock out all the foot soldiers, whilst everyone should be blinded. So I thought that was quite clever. But again, if you want to see some really good fight action, you definitely get it elsewhere rather than in this movie.
When they come back to the sewers, one of my favorite lines, and you said this as well. So when Casey, realizes they're gonna have to go down the sewer, they finally get into the hideout. They discover Danny, and then they're discussing they're gonna stay down. And he goes, whoa, we're gonna stay down here. And Donnie just turns around and says, "You're a claustrophobic." Casey turns around.
Do you want to punch in the mouth?
Says, I never even looked at another guy before. That line went past me as a kid. I remember looking at my parents, and my parents were cacking up laughing. I was like, what's going on? I don't understand this. And it's such a classic line. But how they put that in a kids movie, I don't know.
Yeah, well, that's what this movie does quite well in certain scenes. They give something for the parents, and then they give a majority of it to the kids, because you got to think this movie's going to attract kids, and kids can't go and watch this movie by themselves. They need to be taken by one of their parents or guardians. So parents not going to be interested in this. We need to make it somewhat somewhat, for them as well. And I think that's what they do with a lot of kids' movies anyway. I mean, like, for example, Shrek. A lot of the jokes in that are geared towards parents, so...
Oh yeah, 100%.
I haven't watched it in a long time.
Well, where else can you find a kids' movie where a villain is called Lord Farquaad?
Oh, okay. I was like, where are you going with this one? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so, but the humor in Ninja Turtles, it's really quite inoffensive. But yeah, that scene with Casey was really fun. And it just speaks to the ignorance of the character. Like, he's just a meathead. And I think that's what makes him more lovable. But I was researching some, because I haven't seen the original animated series in so long, but I was looking up what the best episodes were, and then there was one where Casey had to go undercover. So he's wearing a suit, but he's still got his his mask on and his weapons behind him. I actually want to track down that episode just to see how stupid it is.
No, it's such a bad episode because I even as a kid, I even said, why does he still have his mask on? Why does he still have his thing? And this is a 7-year-old me, like, looking at it and going, what's going on? It's the most... I mean, it's a fun episode to watch now that you're older, but as a kid, you're just like, what?
Yeah, it looks like it'd be super surreal, that it would just be so accepted.
This Casey is different, is completely different, because he sits there and he's like, all brooding and stuff, and he's just got this really gruff voice, and if you watched the movie before you saw that bit, you're kind of like, how does April fall in love with a guy like that? Because he's just a brute. Pretty sure you can find it on YouTube, and if I can find it, I'll put it in the description so you guys can see what that is. But let's get into the last few moments of this movie. Obviously, we just talked about the fight scene when the Foot bombard the lair. I just want to point out something, and I'm going to incriminate myself on this one. The only reason why I started eating apples, right, as a kid, I love apples now, but as a kid, I never used to eat apples, is because Raph was eating one in that scene.
Well, there you go, product placement.
Yeah, product placement. So anyone who sells apples, hit me up. Because he's sitting there and he goes, gosh, I wish there was more of them. And he's got the apple in his hand. And I just looked at my dad and says, is that an apple? And he goes, yeah. And I'm like, I think I want to eat an apple now. Like, I know it's a useless story, but I just wanted to point that out there, like how incredibly stupid I was as a kid, because that's the only reason why they got me to eat apples, because I watched on Turtles.
Yeah, kids are always going to be highly impressionable. So, yeah, you probably just wanted to emulate one of your heroes there.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I guess so. But I mean, we do stupid stuff as kids anyway. So I'm dreading when I have my own kids and thinking, what are they going to put me through if I was like that?
It's funny, like when a movie is that sort of special, I guess, a lot of people try to emulate some of the things they've seen. I mean, Quentin Tarantino, after he saw, I think it was The Killer, he started wearing trench coats a lot more.
Was that the one with Chow Yun-fat?
Yes. So, yeah. He either The Killer or A Better Tomorrow. Like, A Better Tomorrow sounds like it's closer.
I think it's Better Tomorrow. Yeah.
Yeah, but like I remember this douchebag that I went to high school with. He used to try and copy Ekin Cheng's ear cleaning thing with his thumb from Young and Dangerous. And yeah, like,
are you serious?
Yeah, that dude's a total wanker. So
wait, Ekin Cheng or the douchebag from high school?
The douchebag from high school.
Okay, because I was about to say, if you're saying Ekin Cheng is a wanker, I'm like, oh, come on, dude.
No, man, that guy's a national treasure in Hong Kong.
Yeah, I know.
He is awesome. Like, that hair is magnificent.
He's still working. He's still working hard. Yeah.
Yeah. I'd love to see him in a Ninja Turtles film. I'd watch that.
I'd watch it too. I love it.
But I was going to say that with Shredder, and this is just one of those things that I really like to observe. I completely forgot how boss of an entrance he would have most times. So, first he's watching April O'Neil's news report on like 50 screens, bit excessive. But when he first shows up in the Foot Clan's headquarters, and then gives his very cult leader type speech to the kids about how their family and he's their father, before he even speaks, just the presence, man. And then seeing the light just reflecting over the top blade of his helmet, that was awesome. Like, you see it on one side, and then when he turns, you see it do it on the other side. And then it follows up with Tatsu just moving his robe to reveal the shoulder spikes. I was like, that is a really, really memorable introduction for a villain. And then even in the end, when he inserts himself into the fight, the way that he jumps in, like, he just lands. So, like, this is before superhero movies were even a thing. Like, that was like what Deadpool says. Yeah, he goes for the superhero landing, even though he's the supervillain. I thought that was a very fun little touch there. And yeah, I mean, the way the movie plays out, it is a comic book in motion, and the creators sort of cherry picked a number of scenes from the earliest issues of the original series, and it is quite cohesive. I think the story, points for the story, it is very cohesive. It is a very cohesive narrative that isn't too confusing. It's really easy to follow, and yeah, it's like a comic book that just leaps out of the pages at you.
One thing, I don't think you guys have ever seen the footage or even know about, because obviously I love this movie more than anything, but that opening scene with Shredder was actually a lot more darker, a lot more violent. And I will put a link, because I have found the deleted scene on YouTube. So what they do, like how it starts, so they unveil the carpet, but Shredder doesn't have the robe. He just sits down on this little, I think it's a little couch or something little cushion. And one by one, all these foot soldiers come in, and he kills them. Like, he just goes, and it's the most badass thing. I'm like, why didn't they start off with that and then maybe put the robe on and then show, what other stuff he had? That it's such a good scene. If you have the DVD, it's on the DVD as well. But what did you guys think of the last scene? So with Splinter catching him and with the nunchuck that Mikey threw.
I thought it was cool, but then I thought Casey Jones finishing him off with the dump truck was. Because if you think about it, like, you don't actually see anything, but if you imagine, because the dump truck crushing, like, garbage and he's in it, if this was like a Saw movie, you would see bloods and guts spilled everywhere, but luckily it's like a G movie. And I guess, like, in the sequel...
PG.
I guess in the sequel you see that, he survived, spoiler alert, but, it's the power of the ooze to gain more power. But just thinking, if that was the way to finish someone off, and he says it in such a choking and nonchalant way as well, like, it makes me think like, oh, okay, sure, he's a meathead, but he's also like a sociopath as well, because I'm pretty sure he was expecting that would not just maim him or just like put him out of commission. I'm pretty sure he was trying to kill him as well. So
yeah, he was, because even in the comic books, like, Casey had no moral compass. He was very violent, and he is more like, all right, I'm doing the city a service. If I kill them, they're done, and they don't have to do it anymore. It wasn't until he met Raph for the first time in the Raphael one shot, and this is how much of a nerd I am, that he started to realize what he was doing. So.
Yeah, but the delivery of the line when Casey ends up killing Shredder was great. Oops! Like, he's really awesome in this movie, and it was.
He's definitely. I can't believe I'm going to use this stupid term, but he is the GOAT of this film.
Yeah, no, definitely GOAT, MVP, whichever one you prefer. Yeah, he is a lot of fun, and I guess he's sort of like the Han Solo of this film, and yeah, like, I think that my enjoyment of the movie was doubled because of seeing him in this.
Well, let's move to the most important question. Is it cool?
Yeah, like, seeing it, like, it's hard for me to enjoy it. So if I watched it now without having seen it as a kid, there's no way I would enjoy it. But yeah, because this movie is almost like a time capsule of things in the 90s. But watching this again, it just gives me memories of what I, of my childhood, what I enjoyed, like, all the toys and the lunch boxes that I have, and even, the t-shirts that I used to wear. So it just reminds me of a happier time of my childhood. As a movie, watching it now, like, I think Tim made a really good point. I mean, the jokes fall flat, the action was pretty flat. Yeah, there was nothing really popping about the fight scenes, and the puppeteering is amazing. I got to give Jim Henson, I don't know if we mentioned this, but we got to give Jim Henson the props for this. Like, it's crazy.
They did. The Jim Henson Studio did a really, really good job.
Yeah, but as a movie, it falls flat. But as just a tribute of everything I loved in the '90s, I think it does very well. So yes, I'm going to say it's cool.
I don't think it's cool. Like six-year-old me would definitely say that it's very cool. Or six. I think it was 6 until like 9 years old even. Me as a child definitely loved this movie, and it's got its place for me in terms of my memory. But as watching it now as an adult, there wasn't a lot to it that I could really see myself enjoying. I mean, Tripp mentioned earlier, the puppetry of Splinter when he was a rat and then he was learning ninjutsu and stuff. That was like, I was cracking up the whole time, and I was googling like how long does a brown rat live, and it said 2 years. I go, this is bullshit. And then like, you mean to tell me that he fly kicks his way across the Shredder's face and starts clawing and biting? I go, nah. But if there is ever a NECA series release of fly kicking Splinter before he was mutated, I would definitely buy it just because it makes me laugh a lot. But then then there are like certain things that I didn't really understand. Like Dan, you and I were commenting about this offline. Like, I don't even remember like how Danny found the turtle's lair.
I love how you're saying commenting, because we were having a mini argument at one point.
Well, I tried to keep it as measured as possible so you wouldn't think that it was an argument. But no, like I honestly did not have that reading of it that he was the one that observed Raph taking April back, because it was just a foot soldier, and I know you said that he's definitely part of the Foot Clan because he's wearing the sash with the dragon dogi or whatever. But I just I just thought I'm obviously I'm not trying to be overly critical, but I just thought that might have been a plot hole, as well as the fact that after Hamato Yoshi is assassinated by Orokusaki, this took place in Japan, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So like, it didn't really. I forgot. I don't know like whether they commented about how Splinter made his way from Japan to America.
Oh no, they went to America. And so everything at the start of the story, they said they were to Japan, but then they moved to America, and then Shredder had followed them to America, and he killed them in America.
Okay, all right, well, yeah.
And sorry,
no, that's okay. This is exactly it. Like it's like I don't want to trash a movie that you really really love. It's just that there are certain points to it that just didn't really make sense to me, and I can sort of overlook some things, but then some like were a bit glaring. I honestly did love how much of a laugh like I got out of this, but there's this part where Splinter has been captured and you see him quite a few times, but there's a bit where Tatsu is talking to Splinter, and then he's like talking about like your empire is growing, something like that.
No, he wasn't talking to Splinter. He's talking to Shredder.
Sorry, Shredder. My mistake. Yeah, he's talking to Shredder about his empire is growing, and it's really just an empire of stolen white goods and appliances. Like, what's the grand plan here, bro? Like, what are you going to be doing with all of these stolen electronics? Like, I just thought this is incredibly dumb. Like, this criminal empire is toothless. Like, the only thing that's got bite, obviously, is the fact that Shredder's got incredible martial arts skills, and so does Tatsu. But yeah, so for me, it's a big not cool. I can't see myself watching this again. It unless of course I would show this to my children. This is what Daddy used to like. These are the kinds of movies that I grew up with. But I will say that the 2007 movie is awesome, And also the most recent Batman versus Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was very, very enjoyable. That was actually one of my favorite animated movies in the past few years. So there's still a place in my heart for the Ninja Turtles.
We'll have to talk about that in the future, the Batman versus the TMNT, because that is a project that I never thought would ever happen. Now all they need to do is make a Daredevil versus TMNT, and then we'll be in business. That would be the ultimate one, because, well, if you guys know your lore, they parodied the whole thing with Daredevil's blindness, because that canister that hit Matt Murdock was the exact same canister that mutated the Turtles. So that would be a really good thing if they ever do that. So Marvel, if you're listening, please get that done. Please get in contact with IDW and make that happen. For me, this movie is Frozen. It's not just cool, it's Frozen. I watch this at least once a month. I watch it when I'm happy, I watch it when I'm sad. Again, if you guys want to read the article that I talk about this movie, it's all on our Tumblr. I just want to, before we finish up with the cast, I just want to say to the creators of the TMNT, Peter Laird and Kevin Eastman, thank you so much for creating these things that have made our childhood great, saved me, and just given us years and hours of entertainment. Well, that's all the time we have for this episode. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to our podcast on Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Breaker, Overcast, Pocket Casts, Radio Public, Google Podcasts, Castbox and Stitcher. And while you're there, leave us a review. If you're watching on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button and enable those notifications. If you can't wait for our next episode, why not check out our Tumblr page? Find us at What If It's Called Podcast. Make sure to find us on Facebook at What If It's Called Podcast, tweet us at What If It's Called, and find us on Instagram at What If It's Called Podcast. Keep that support coming. And until next time, folks, we'll catch you on the next cast. Peace.